Okay, Mark, are you ready? You guys ready?
Yes.
Tom, you ready? Good evening and welcome to the August 20th meeting of the Los Angeles Grove County Council. If we could have the roll call, please.
Mayor Browning,
Here.
Councilman Wilson,
Here.
Councilman Rackett,
Here.
and let the record reflect that Vice Mayor Guerrero and Councilman Liang are not present.
Okay, if you would stand for the pledge, remain standing for the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Heavenly Father, again, we ask for wisdom and guidance. We pray for safety for our community, for protection from the storms. We pray for Councilman Liang as he's not feeling well, and for Ron as he travels. We pray this in your name. Amen. All right. Any additions to the agenda? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda. Okay. Okay. Motion by Jim, second by Tom. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Any opposed, same sign. All right.
I'm sorry, Rob, just for a point of order, I think the first time that members present, under the charter, it requires for any action that be a majority of the full council, so there needs to be a video vote in order for any action to be taken this evening.
For the patch.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay, moving to the consent agenda. Entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, is there a second? We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Any opposed, same sign. Consent agenda passes 3-0. Moving to public comments. I have Phyllis Nicolia.
So I come up now?
Yeah, come on. And then I've got Keith Harris.
Okay, Phyllis Vanillia, 359 West D Road. I have, trying to be brief. I had a code enforcement dispute. In September, it will be a year. Okay, my problem is that I have never received anything in writing, and I have requested so. I was stated a statute of the Farm Act, but not the statute. I was stated that my code enforcement problem had no merit because of the Farm Act. But yet when I asked to please state, because I called the county, I called the state, and I called the feds, and they said, well, what statute is he claiming that protects these people on the Farm Act? And there's nothing. I have nothing. So I would like to make a suggestion that, code enforcement complaints need to be I'm sorry, I'm nervous. Addressed, thank you. Addressed in writing or text message, something. And at least say if it's lingering, where we're at with progress. I would certainly appreciate that. And I would be very curious to know as how much Loxahatchee Groves has paid out in my particular situation, which I feel has gone nowhere. Thank you.
Thank you. Keith?
Trace on Keith Harris, 2580 C Road. Recently, Town Council voted for $80,000 to be made available in the year 2014 for the funding of equestrian trails between A Road and Folsom Road. In discussion of the motion, Mayor Browning had requested that some of those $80,000 earmarked for the year 2014 would be used to make necessary repairs to existing equestrian trails. Yesterday, I walked 2 designated equestrian trails located in the east end of Waxahachie Rose Park. The trails were clear and did not appear to offer a liability exposure. I request confirmation of the mayor's concern as is it an inclusive addition or not of the 2014 budget. Secondly, in the March 6, 2012 Town Council meeting minutes, a motion was made to acquire the portion of a canal easement 6 Court North to C Road, open up for a horse trail not to exceed $30,000. The motion carried 5-0. The August 21st, 2012 Town Council meeting minutes states, despite the fact that we, as a town council, voted that there be a horse trail in between C and D Road, and despite Water District agreeing to that, there was an email from the former Water District official that he did not have any knowledge of any easement for that property. No, the Water District has a new administrator. Town Council minutes, statements made by Town Council members and Water District personnel have suggested that the former Water District official was not being cooperative. It has been indicated that the new administrator is very cooperative. Perhaps a revisit to the Water District to research the availability of the easement is in order. Perhaps an easement from the property owners may be a benefit. I volunteer my time to do the legwork if it is the pleasure of the council. If it is no longer the pleasure of the council to perform the 6 Court equestrian trail improvements, will council consider to defer those allocated monies of $30,000 to be added to the $80,000 of the 2014 equestrian trail budget, whose adjusted sum would be the amount of $110,000 for the equestrian trail from A Road to Folsom. I respectfully submit this rationale for your consideration, as that portion of A Road to Folsom Trail would already be in place, except for an easement. Lastly, the town deserves the biggest bang for its buck. The development of a point-by-point specific, multi-phase master plan, complete with specifications and consideration of all contingencies, are essential. Each and every dollar will require attention and consideration to make the equestrian trail system for the town of Waxahachie Groves a successful project for all parties concerned. I respectfully offer these comments for your consideration as topics for upcoming town council and committee meeting agendas. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Okay, moving down to, we have no presentations, committee reports, public hearings, ordinances, resolutions, down to 9. Administrative update, Mark.
Thank you, Your Honor. The first item I wanted to bring to the council's attention is, as you know, we will be entering September very soon, and the ULDC has been meeting to review the ULDC code. Council previously, in direction to me, has indicated that they wanted to be the main conduit in terms of items that the ULDC would discuss. You may remember when the ULDC review committee was created, we also indicated to you that more than likely we would probably have to double up on meetings starting maybe in October. So what I would ask of the council is if you would take a look at everything that's been bothering you, anything in ULDC that you're concerned about, and over the next 2 meetings in September, let me know as we make the final push to have the committee complete its work. And so I want to give the council a lot of time to take a look at it. We can do it over the course of 2 meetings. And additionally, I received this tonight, apparently from Howard Bourne, making a public comment. At least it says public comment. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to read this to you or not, but it basically says, I, Howard Bourne of 1538 E Road, Waxahachie, Florida. As a member of the ULDC committee, would like to ask the town council to approve an extra meeting this month for the committee due to a backlog of work. Due to the zoning committee not meeting this month, the town manager will have the time. Well, I mean, we're gonna do that, we're gonna start doing that. I don't know if it's that imminent, in terms of the fact that we would have to have the extra meeting this month. But I want to make aware, because we have discussed this with the organization, and they are aware that they're gonna have to probably double up in the future. Just a quick review of the SIDAR issue. We met with SIDAR on the 14th of August. And we have our engineering vendor going ahead and they measured the SIDAR trucks, so they're going to be doing the calculations as it relates to the cubic yards issue. But the public works vendor and I are also pursuing, investigating standpoint of burn permits that were issued by the Forest Service, and also in dealing with A1 stop, which is where SIDAR indicated they have taken all the cubic yards of vegetation. So basically, we're still in the process of reviewing all aspects and particulars as it relates to the invoice. I just wanted to give you that update. I wanted to let you know that we received from BEBR our population estimate as of April 1 of this year, for 1/13. And they have indicated that their preliminary estimate is 3,185, which is an increase from last year. That's a good estimate, so I signed off on it and sent that back to the state. I wanted to make you aware of that.
What was the number again, Mark?
Yes, 3,185. You may remember the previous year was 3,173, it's gone down. And finally, I wanted to offer this action to council. As you know, the town clerk had provided you with information where a representative of Cotler Herring had requested that the mayor and the vice mayor be available for meetings relative to some briefings they wanted to give you on the Calvary Judge project. If you so desire, I will actually contact them and see if they want to make themselves available to all council members on an individual basis. So if that's your desire, I will go ahead and make that contact. If not, then we just talked about it in the office, and we felt that, you know, it's fine to contact the mayor and the vice mayor, but basically, in lieu of a full-blown presentation from the entire council, all council members should have the ability to have that discussion if they so desire.
What this is regard to again?
Calvary Judge.
Calvary Judge. Remember, I reported to you, they met with the town planner and myself, and I think what they're doing is they're doing part of their due diligence, and they're going around, they're talking to the various decision makers and all the municipalities and divisions. And they had sent an email out early August requesting a meeting with the mayor and vice mayor.
And you got my answer on
I
that.
got your answer.
Is this something that is of value, I think it's of value to the whole community, that meeting here might have value to communicate some of the information throughout the community. I don't believe we would meet to discuss approval, disapproval, or we like it, we don't like it, but I'd be open to a presentation as we would get on any other kind of organization presentation.
Well, again, I don't think they're at a point in time where they want to come and do a public presentation. But staff just felt that every council member, if they are giving briefings or updates, that every council member should, on an individual basis, be able to hear what's going on, since they don't have any applications filed. Further, I would say, if it makes any council member feel better, I mean, I would pledge to have staff and myself there as well, if there is some concern about meeting with them.
I'm always interested in information,
Correct.
especially if something so large is going on. I wouldn't be opposed to meeting with them, but my comment is also, if they're not ready to have a public meeting, I'm not ready to meet with them.
Okay.
Because I would like anything said to be said to the public at the same time.
I won't make any other, if that's your direction.
I mean, that's my thought. I mean, I don't know about this council, but I would accept the kind of, here's where we are, here's who we are, maybe, here's what we're looking at, and it doesn't have to be long, but certainly I'm sure there's a lot of people in our community who'd like to hear maybe the latest from them directly. That's all.
Tom?
Yeah, with all that in mind, I don't think that I need a personal meeting.
And I've already stated, I will meet with them. You know, I think right now they're, like you say, they're on a fishing expedition. They're trying to build relationships when they try to go and increase the number of homes that they want to build. And whatever they build is going to impact Los Angeles Groves regarding Joby Boulevard. So, you know, if they want to bring it to the public, let them bring it to the public and offer it to them on that. Okay, anything else?
That concludes my report.
Okay, what's,
I had a question for Mark. The vegetation contract, I have a concern that the way it's structured, as far as an hourly service, is not a good way to have a service provider. I think it's kind of beyond administration of it. I don't think it's a reasonable basis. If I would love to have a contract myself, because I have a lot of time, so to speak, and I would take all the time in the world to do the job. And my contract says just pay by the hour. I just think we've gone down the wrong road in that respect. I would suggest that we cancel the contract, we pay up everything that we owe based on the contract terms, and we actually go out again for services only for that particular need. And we do it on maybe a per mile basis, not necessarily up one side of the road, down the other side of the road is 2 miles. It's per road mile, not per lane. I guess we use the term lane mile in our gas tax. In any case, I'm looking for, I mean, Dave, and I'm sure Tom has input on that, but I think we've gone down the wrong path on an hourly basis. It made it extremely difficult for you to administer. So, and I think I recall at least the sentiment that hourly was not necessarily the best way to go from our mayor, so, if I recall correctly. But I'd like to maybe suggest that to the council that we look to do that expeditiously, because obviously we do need the service.
oh,
Well, I don't disagree really with anything Jim said. I think out of fairness to the vendor, we ought to put it on the agenda for next meeting and address it at that point. And she was trying to see if we were going to talk about it tonight, so. Yeah, and I don't disagree with anything Jim said.
okay, and I agree, we need to put it on the agenda. My feeling is, I think we probably made a mistake in how we presented it on this contract, but we put it out for bid, we did it the right way, we got a person that bid it, that bought equipment to do it and everything else. I am a little hesitant to cancel it this year. I think we let it run its thing, okay, we made a mistake, we'll make the adjustment in the future. But anyway, let's put it on the agenda.
Okay.
And, okay, anything else for Mark? Okay, the only thing I'd like to see is what Keith brought up. Mr. Harris, if we could, I don't know when the Trails Committee is meeting next.
It'll be next Wednesday.
Okay, but I know it's our intent to do this. We wanted to, we had a glitch, but, let's bring it up with them, get a suggestion, and we'll bring it back up. Tom?
With regard to what Keith was talking about, the plat was located, and the easement does exist to the Water Control District. And it is something that Mark is aware of, we've discussed it, it's basically where the $30,000 that came up to start. It's how we got to 80, we had 30, we added 50, so that's where that is. It'd be nice if we could get another 30, but good try. I appreciate it. But anyway, I think we are going to move forward with that. I think actually at the intergovernmental, rather than even at the trails, we're already to that point where.
Yeah, the question always was, whether we could rely on any survey data that we had in order to make the improvements. And, I think, I'll get a verification based upon the class. And, we've already talked about that Steve and I have talked about it, and we talked about it, Councilman Wright at IGC, so, yeah, we can move forward. We'll schedule it for discussion.
And on that same conversation, I've discussed with Mark the need for, as the solar sports people come back to us, that we should have the conservation easement in place for the buffer that they're gonna turn over for us.
Right.
And have that missing link of collecting canal that hasn't even been cleared off enough for canal maintenance or anything. It's all overgrown with exotics and all that either. But I was suggesting to Mark that the Jim have that worked out with them in advance, so when they come here, it's not something that's condition of approval, it's something that they've got handled. And if we're all in agreement with that, I hope that, that'll be here when they get here. So we can.
What's the status with the one part that's the nursery on the corner? Is that the part where you're talking about it's never been cleared?
Well, I'm talking about actually all the way from C Road over. It hasn't been cleared because there's Brazilian peppers actually right down to the water edge. They never did one of their easement through that section. And then also the nursery is part of it, but I was talking with Mike one day from the water district, and he looked at that and he said, yeah, they're using our easement for the nursery, so they're aware of it. I guess it's a question of working it out with the landowner, but that's really the missing link, right through there.
Right, okay. All right, moving
Sort of
to,
like your chocolates and my peanut butter, I don't know which one it is, but it's something like
They'll
that.
probably claim the right to farm that.
adverse possession or something. Because I've only been using it. All right, moving to old business. And I don't know, I mean, I would love to discuss this with the full council.
Yeah, I would be in favor of just let's send it back to them, just so we can.
Okay.
No, we should discuss this full council. I still have, I guess, a question in my mind. Do we really have a problem that we're trying to solve, or do we have kind of like a little issue that we're going at it with got a net and trying to kill the sledgehammer? I don't know we have a real problem. The town existed, the county had jurisdiction, whatever was used then, I don't know if people have changed what they've done just because the town became a town. So I just don't know how much, but I definitely would say we need to talk about.
My concern, so you understand, is that because of what Mike has unearthed and the knowledge that we have, and the fact that it's been a practice, as Jim says, for people who've done this a long time, I don't want people to think, I have people say, well, gee, I didn't even know we weren't allowed to. So, the thing is, if one particular police officer decides he's going to enforce that, when you're in violation of the law, and the town council has discussed it and said, no, we're going to leave it like it is, well now, I was a police officer, I would be saying, hey, you're driving, everybody knows it, they talked about it, they said you can't do it, so what are you doing it for? So we should discuss it, we should decide yes, no, not maybe, not just look the other way, because honestly, I think looking at it the other way is a very bad way to run a government. To say there's laws and we're going to look this way right now because you're being good, but if you're bad, I'm going to come down on you, is not proper. We should, the law should be fair, the law should be clear, and I don't have a problem with people using golf carts. Swamp buggies, gigantic swamp buggies may be an issue. They're a separate issue. And we have the ability to limit size of, what would be considered a swamp buggy that would be acceptable if we so chose. But let's do the discussion on this.
Okay.
Everybody here. And
All right, so I'll entertain a motion to table this. We need a
If
motion.
you want to just, by motion, you can
Or
defer
reschedule
it, just
it.
tell which meeting you want, September, what is it, 3rd or 17th, and the 3rd is budget.
Yes, since it wasn't
Whichever
a
meeting you want it
resolution
on.
or ordinance, right, I think we can just.
This
put
is
it
just
on
direction, so you can put it on the next meeting.
Next agenda, I don't think we need much more than that.
Yeah. I would say either one of the next two meetings. I mean, if one of them is too crowded, it's not going to be bother me to have it the second meeting in September.
and would it be acceptable they had a sample resolution for us, or do we just want to discuss it from there?
I think we'll probably need to discuss it because I'm kind of in agreement with you. I'm all right with one, I'm not so all right with the other, so, and one's already legal, so, yeah. What do you call it?
Well, obviously, the third is the first reading of the budget, and the first reading,
Well, it's
yeah, and then, 17th is the second. I can, prior to judge by, which agenda, but I'd rather get direction from you as to which one you prefer. I'd be happy to put it either.
If it's in the first one, put it in the first one, then we're just moving
Let's
it.
put it on the first one.
All right, we need that in the form of motion.
If you can, just
Okay,
so there's
sure.
a record of it.
Anything you want.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, someone want to make a motion?
I make a motion, we take item 10A, discussion
Yeah.
on golf carts, dune buggies on town road, to move it to our next available meeting option.
Second, second. Okay. Any discussion, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes 3-0. All right, moving to 10B.
I suppose you do want to discuss this one tonight?
Yeah, that's what I think.
Great, thank you. Council, you may remember back in March, you had asked me to stand down in terms of code enforcement efforts related to the shopping plaza here. And at that point in time, I had already been in discussions with Mr. Yee. And after that direction, he came to meet with me, and I advised him that the town council had asked me to stand down, and we weren't making any requirements of him. And he proceeded to tell me at that time that he wanted to move forward on requirements, and asked me what he needed to do besides any of the life safety issues. At that time, I said, well, from putting on my risk manager hat on for a second, from a liability standpoint, I said, the one that I'd be worried about, and I'm referring to the 5 pages of conditions that govern that center that were approved by Palm Beach County, is the number 15, which basically says no access onto Tangerine or West D Road, for the obvious reasons, and so I said, because I was concerned, I said, as the owner, you face liabilities if something happens. The town can face liabilities in terms of not enforcing the condition. And I dropped that at that point. And, anything Mr. Reed wants to do at this point, he's doing without any consultation or request from me. On the 13th, we received what I consider a very ugly email from Mr. Hart Woods, who again asking me to take a position, telling me that Mr. Yee has advised him that I am requesting, or at least mandating and requiring, that this access be cut off. And they're talking about not even complying with the condition anyway. They're talking about just closing it off at night, but still using it. He seems to determine this to be a public relations issue and not really a code issue as it is. I really have no intention of doing anything unless town council directs me. The management company has decided to bring this to you to decide. But I will tell you, from the standpoint of the management company, we are very, not only upset, but concerned with, thinly veiled threats that Mr. Hartswood decides to put in an email about bricks coming through a town window and things like that. It's not a good situation to be making those kind of statements public, at least via public email. So with that, I wanted you to be aware of it. If you have any action you want to take, certainly up to you. It's more or less the management company bringing it to you in this way.
Okay. Comments by council?
As far as the condition of use of that property that was granted by the county, I think we should adhere to no access to those roads as is specified. I don't know if the council wants to direct you to go back again and say, Mr. Yee, that's what we're trying to enforce that condition or not. That's not a question, I think. That's what you should do. At this point, as far as I'm concerned, there should be no access. That's what it says. We didn't grant access. And I would be concerned in general for a commercial center to be now allowed to take its traffic out onto a residential street. We've been careful, I think, at least we discussed it every time there's a commercial venture as to what the access is, what the traffic pattern is, and will it affect the residential area that's surrounding. And we've tried to do what we can to avoid that. This was just like stepping in it with 2 feet. I just don't see the need to do that. Whether the council wants to direct you to take any other action, that's my opinion.
Okay, Tom?
I was happy with leaving things the way they were. I read through this thing, and there's plenty of things that aren't being done. So if we're going to pick one, I don't think that's appropriate. As I said, do it all or do none. So if Mark said he was good enough with leaving it the way it was, then I think we ought to just leave it the way it is. Everybody else just leave it alone.
Okay. Have there been any complaints from the people on the road behind the plaza, on the street?
We had a complaint from one gentleman who indicated he was going to file a complaint, but he never acted on it.
Okay, for the additional traffic that?
Yeah, he felt that the road was being eroded away. And I think this was sometime in, I want to say maybe late April. I never heard from him.
Okay, because I'll be honest with you, I like it, you know, because it's, you know, and with the construction going on Southern and everything else, it makes it a whole lot easier to get out of that plaza. You know, if we happen to go with the thing that I think we might be able to go with, golf carts on our road, it would be an easy way for residents to come into that plaza without having to go on to Southern, because I wouldn't go on Southern in a golf cart or a bicycle for anything. So, you know, I mean, so I don't think it's personally, I don't think it's such a big deal. I know why the county did it. At that time, the county wanted everything going on and off of Southern.
So, you know, now the county wants everything to be on Tangerine. They've written letters requesting that we open Tangerine up all the way through town. You know, so they've changed their tune since this was done.
They all have. They want to go more with that off the main road, you know, access. So, you know, I kind of feel like I go in a circle because I come into the plaza off Southern
Right.
and go out the back way. You know, so anyway.
No, I do the same. When I live in the neighborhood, and I think that people do like and do use that neighborhood. So I don't have a problem.
Right. Mike?
Though I really would love to see the tension and turmoil that goes on reduced greatly. I think that really could be, you know, diminished. And I think that's on both sides. Everybody could stand down with that. I think would be appropriate. And then we have to remember that any windows that get broken belong to Mr. E, and I don't think he wants that to happen. So,
Yeah, I don't think he does either. Yeah,
I just, you know, put on the lawyer hat, because that's what you pay me for, is we've got a resolution here that says no access. What I would recommend is maybe we meet with the property owner, if that's a condition that he wants to seek relief from formally from the town council, that we encourage him to pursue that, because, you know, this is a resolution that you all inherited, and there may be other issues, but we leave it up to him to see what he wants to formally ask for relief from. In the meantime, we don't need to enforce it, but it does need, I think, to be properly done at some point. You know, if you want to formalize that access, we'll all, you know, deal with that, and I think we should do it
that'd
right
be good.
away.
And I would like to, before we did that, before we made a decision, I would like to do a survey of the people that live right on that road, because they will be impacted the greatest. And, you know, I think that would be the right thing to do. But anyway, all right, I've got several public comments. First one is John Ryan.
John Ryan, 3508 A Road. I think the existence of a formal resolution by the county ought to be respected, absent the kind of process that Mike was outlining. I think a formal request for a change by deed would allow public comment from the residents on the road, and I think that's the way we should go. I'm not 100% sure at this point if we collect gas tax, or the town collects gas tax on that section of road, but if they do, that certainly argues for it being a public road. And I think that it is clear that with the proposed developments on B Road, if we extend Tangerine, or in a sense make it a more formal road for public use, that, you know, that kind of concern would be appropriate. So I think that you should make a formal request. I think you should pay any costs in evaluating it, including, and I think that the people that reside on that road ought to be encouraged to participate in the process.
Thank you, John. Phyllis?
Phyllis Manilio, 359 Westy Road. Pineapple, this this road right here that we're talking about for the plaza, first of all, I very much encourage the agricultural business, Tim's business, British Hay. We have two businesses, Mary's Restaurant, and we have the A&G, which is now in the plaza with a cash and check and a beer store. Okay, we really need to embrace these ag people that wanna spend the money and, you know, take the chance on a business in our community. I have some statements here out of my real estate book, which we were talking about the 20 years or more continuous use. That's pineapple. So if pineapple to me is a road, and I'll be glad to hand this to you guys
Well,
if you want.
I think we collect gas tax on pineapple, am I correct?
But pineapple used to go all the way through, and I wrote it, and Tom and I went through all that, and about whether or not it should be opened. I think it should be opened, and I believe if anything happened to this little bridge here, we would have, myself, my animals, my neighbors would have no access to the main road. Okay, that's one. And that's basically what I want to say. I'd like to stop, you know, crucifying British Hay and kind of like to embrace the ag company. Perhaps those U-Hauls can go out into that big parking lot out there instead of on the main drag. And that's how I feel as a resident that lives right in this neighborhood.
I think there's a lot of room for U-Haul at Fort Bell Lake.
Pardon?
No, I think there's plenty of room for the U-Haul at Fort Bell Lake.
Well, I don't want to do that. That's Al, you know, Al's been here a long time.
Yeah.
So, all right, thank you.
Lisa Glenn?
Hi, I'm Lisa Glenn, 1311 Folsom Road. I'm not sure this is how I do this, but I did call the town and they said it had to be brought to the town meeting.
Okay, is this about this issue?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
Then what you need to do is wait for the public comments at the end.
Okay. Thank you.
Then I've got Frank Shiloh.
Frank Shaw on Marcel Boulevard. Having that piece open in the back, I use it as great. You know, you take your life in your hands and you go across Southern Boulevard. We all know it. I mean, there's an accident there every other day just about. You know, it's a very easy area to solve. It's through council approval if that's what the shopping center owner wants. But he was going to have to come here to say that that's what he wants. I don't know if it would be a big deal, but the second part of this is something that we've seen in Loxahatchee Groves for about the last 6 months, and it's an elevated threat level, I guess is the best way to say it. You know, the town management company are receiving phone calls. Grade my road today, or I'm going to come in there and I'm going to beat the crap out of it. Okay?
Seriously?
Seriously. I responded to one of those complaints where Denise Rodriguez was threatened over the phone. I will come in there from a man on Global. I'm going to come in there and I'm going to beat the crap out of you because emergency vehicles cannot get down Global Trail. I went out there and talked to him. And I actually sent the battalion chief out because I was actually talking to him when I got the call. He went out there and said, we get it down just fine. He was complaining about 2 potholes in the road. I said, honestly, you think that by threatening somebody that you're going to get it done? He goes, well, yeah, that's the way it works in this world. This is not an isolated incident. This is what's happening. The threats are coming more and more out there. Unfortunately, people don't want to threaten me when I get out there. I don't know why, but I think it's easier over the phone. You said at the last meeting there, look what happened in Connecticut. It was over a sewer hookup. The council over there was working with the gentleman in the municipality, and they were going to space over 10 to 15 years so he didn't have to pay a high bill, you know, one time out. And his septic tank was failing. And underneath their laws, once your septic tank failed, you had to hook up to the city sewer system. And he went in and killed 3 people on council. We're getting to a point out here where people believe it's okay to go ahead and call in and say, you know, I'll come by there, I'll beat you up if you don't do it today. And it's happening a lot. I mean, that's not an isolated incident. That is actually And you can ask anybody that works at that town office, because they call me and I go out there and I deal with them. And the people are irate. And it's not necessarily because there's a pothole, it's because they had a bad day. Like the one guy told me, well, I had a bad day, I got a ticket. I had a flat tire today also. And I said, so that's okay for you to call the town office. Do you realize that in most every other municipality in Palm Beach County, that when you send a threatening email, you're going to get a visit from somebody? And it's not going to be from the towns, it's going to be from law enforcement. They're going to go there and say why. So this is the second part of it, is what Mark was really trying to come across, is that it's okay, you know, everyone has a right of free speech, but at the same time, you cannot go around and threaten anybody, you can't go around and instigate or make innuendos that, hey, you know, we're going to do this to you if you don't do this, and I think this is what the council needs to address. Thank you.
All right, and I've got, yeah, hers is on the. All right, so we're going to go ahead and this will be brought up in one of the, you'll contact Mr. Yee and see if he wants to bring this forward to the council.
I will contact him, and you're showing the willingness to meet with him if he's willing to bring it forward.
Okay.
No cajoling, no, nothing else from me.
And I didn't realize you were getting those kind of threats. I mean, you know, I know that years past, Lynette back here, if somebody called and acted that way over the phone, she hung up. You know, the secretaries do not have to put themselves in that position.
Well, Mayor, let me just say this in response to that. I mean, we don't come to you and whine about it. I mean, we expect that in government service we're going to get some calls like this sometimes. But we don't need somebody fanning the flames and trying to make it worse and trying to create situations that really aren't there. And, you know, I mean, we have Braden and myself in the office, you know, we're not worried about ourselves, but I do worry about the ladies. And Frank very gallantly sometimes agrees to jump on these things, so I don't have to deal with them directly. But it's uncalled for. It wouldn't be tolerated anyways.
Okay. All right, moving on to new business, A. We got the Valley Press.
Thank you, Your Honor. Let me just give you a brief update on this matter. I provided an agenda report. What this relates to is cost recovery expenses in Valley Crest. Valley Crest has actually provided roughly about $16,000 in cost recovery requests. And you may remember at the time they came through, they received a site plan approval from you. However, in that approval, town council placed a condition about wanting them to come back 6 months later. At that time, they were in black. So what we did is the management company took the position, because this wasn't an application that they were filing for, but was really something that you were requiring of them. We did go ahead and use the rest of the cost recovery money to defray some of the costs. However, ultimately the bill ended up being almost $5,000, which is at now basically $44.09. The issue actually came up at an FAAC meeting, because at that point in time, in their June meeting, they were looking at a June balance sheet, which indicated that the Valley Crest was $1,942.38. And of course, at the time, Attorney Coviello wrote his letter to you. We were estimating it was $3,000, but that was without final invoices in a Palm Beach County advertisement. So, you know, basically what I indicated to him is, since the FAAC did not agree with town management as it related to what should have happened relative to cost recovery, I indicated to him that I would put it back on for council's determination, and then he could come and argue on behalf of Valley Crest relative to if it's the right fairness, right thing to do, etc. So with that, okay, he's here. I think he's ready to make a presentation relative to it. As you know, we still have the fine issue to address at special magistrate. I want to be aware of that. That will be forthcoming in the near future at the September special magistrate meeting. But this is strictly to address the cost recovery issue and put that to rest if possible.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, David Coviello. I didn't think I would be back so soon, but happy to be here nonetheless. The issue basically comes down to this. If I can read, I'm sure you read my letter, but the violation that precipitated this whole site plan process, which went on for, over 2 years, was a violation, a code compliance violation. And the violation stated that a landscape service business was only permitted in a zoned area in conjunction with the retail and wholesale nursery. As we know now, that was an error. We always had the opportunity to have a standalone landscape maintenance business. Okay, so, but for that error, we would only have come to you a single time, meaning a site plan approval for a standalone landscape business. Because of this error, we had to come back twice and appear before you. So I don't think it's fair to impose the cost of having to come back a second time on us when the city made that error.
Okay. Tom?
I don't understand, and I'd like them to explain how, what error was made, because I didn't understand.
Yeah, and I don't understand either, because I did not, my thought was that a standalone maintenance was never allowed. But what we did is when we put it together, we took out the part of the little nursery because we didn't want a little, token nursery, so that a landscape, operation could go on.
But what we're referring to when I say what was permitted, we're referring to the county code when this violation was imposed. So we've been traveling under the county code in this entire proceeding. And so the county code has always stated that in our zoning district, a standalone landscape service company was permitted as a principal use. But we were cited under the AGR district, which we're not in. And so we've been operating and going through years of a process thinking that we had to incorporate a nursery when that wasn't the case. And so that's the reason why we had to come back a second time, and you all agreed, this came out of the first hearing, that, gee, this was always permitted, why don't you now eliminate the nursery component? And that's what we did, you're correct.
Okay.
I didn't understand that.
I don't quite remember it going that way, but, Mike, help us out here.
Well, I'm not really dove back into this issue. The case dates back to 2008, and it was cited under the county code, and that's why it was brought forward to you, notwithstanding that code section. I don't know whether it was how long the error was allowed to perpetuate, I guess, is the issue. If there was an error, I've not gone back and confirmed everything that Mr. Coviello said this evening. I'm not saying it's inaccurate, but I've not spent the time to go back and review it in terms of this cost recovery issue. So I view it more of, I guess, a fairness request to you because they came twice to you, and whether you want to consider that equity that you want to use to waive the additional cost for coming back and putting and removing the nursery component. Because had you not done that, it would have been done back in March. There were other conditions that were put in there, that was one of them. So that's the way I view this. If it's going to be viewed it differently, and we may need to take another look. Look at it.
Okay.
I don't think that's what we're talking about.
I think it's important to understand whether or not they went through a 2-year process because of an error on our part, or a 6-year process. And if that's the case, and obviously they don't know, so I should know. But when somebody can tell me that that's the case, I would have one thought on your situation versus otherwise, And I guess it's going to be very material when they discuss the fine with us. If you've always been allowed to do it, then I'm certainly under a misconception. I don't know why they had to go through any of it, other than if you've always been allowed to have a landscape maintenance business, because that isn't what everybody's been telling me.
And what we've done, as the property owner, my client decided, we knew that we were able, we discovered it throughout, when I got involved, and this was maybe a year and a half ago, we discovered that it was always permitted. But in discussing it with the town, we said, we know that the town's code changed, and they no longer permit landscape maintenance companies anywhere in the town. So my client was willing to work with the town staff and say, to come in closer in compliance with the town's new code, we'll add a nursery component in good faith. But then when we came before you, and in fact, we took a recess at that first meeting, we looked at the code and we confirmed that, no, we never needed a nursery component. And so we came back after that recess, and that's when you put it in the resolution, the condition, to come back and remove the nursery component. So, look, I'm not saying that we wouldn't have gone through a process. We had to get a site plan approval, I admit that. But we went through a lot of headaches and had to jump through a lot of hoops to try to incorporate a nursery component, which we never had the obligation to do. And that's as a direct result of the error and the violation.
Do you have anything to add?
This is like a story on a new subject. This is not what I understood any of what we were going through. Was said, or the conditions we were trying to follow, or what we were trying to do to make it work for the applicant. I feel like we tried to come up with a path they could follow to do what they wanted to do, because it wasn't legal, because, as I understand it, if the magistrate said it wasn't an issue to find, then I presume he can read county code as well as anybody, and our code. So he decided it was a findable situation. So I've got to go on. The facts seem a little different when it's presented now. The other thing, I guess, that bothers me is if we were at a point where more work needed to be done, and we already had most of the $16,000 spent, nothing should have been done until it was resolved whether we were going to pay for it or the applicant was going to pay for it. And if the applicant was going to pay for it, money would be in the coffers before any work was done. We cannot go down the path of us footing the bill when we start an application process, we spend money. If we were told, I would imagine, if we were told you're going to spend another $4,000, it's going to be on your nickel, then we might have had a little different discussion and see if there was a way around it. But for us to have any work done in this particular way, and we don't have the money in hand, then we've got to stop that. And, I mean, as far as I'm concerned tonight, I'd like to ask the council, relative to this situation, to make a motion, make a motion that says we will not do any work on any application unless the money that we have in hand covers all the estimated dollar costs that we anticipate, whether it be revised estimate or estimates that are old estimates. And we charge our service providers with the responsibility to give us an estimate, and then if we get close to that estimate being exceeded, they have to come back and tell us, and we have to go to the applicant. So, I don't know if it's appropriate to do it now, but we seem to agree as a council that we don't want to do this. But we don't seem to have any direction, maybe in writing, and I guess I'm ready to issue direction. That would require a universal 3-0 vote to be, I guess, carried. So I'm concerned this is an issue we need to maybe just spell it out. But definitely, we went down a path. I thought we were trying to make it work for the applicant, and any costs that were incurred should be the applicant's, whether it went one way and then another way. You know, that's my opinion. I would not pay for this.
Their situation aside, I agree with him. I don't know how the heck we get to a point where, unless in this particular case, they knowingly did it because there was the opinion that we told them and all that. I understand that explanation of that, but I don't understand, because I know there's other situations, how, when we have an ordinance, which I understand says that we will not vote to do anything if people owe us money, how we keep voting to do things. And the answer is because those who are supposed to watch out do that. And that could be because the bills are not turned in on time, you know, from Jim or from whichever professionals we're talking about don't have the bill into the office on the day that this happens when they've done their work, and obviously we're sitting there, and they're going to bill us for the time we're sitting there right then. But I think we need to get better control on that, because this isn't the only one. I don't like to be in a position after the fact of saying to people, you know, I don't think there's right. This is a totally separate situation. If we've been in a situation where for 2 or 3 years we had the wrong code violation, I don't even know what that is. That's either like getting a speeding ticket when you turn to right. You know, that doesn't make sense. You have to get cited for what you really did, so that I have a problem with. That's an issue. And that's something that we have, our code enforcement vendor ought to cite them for what they really do. And as Phyllis referred to yesterday, follow up with folks so they understand. If somebody's exempt because of freedom to farm, well then, write them a thing. This is over, closed, case, here you go, done, sorry. But, I don't know, the whole thing, obviously, isn't how it's supposed to be because we have an ordinance that says we're not going to be where we are right now. But we're there anyway. Having already voted on this situation, he wants us not to charge him $5,000. He should have paid the $5,000.
But
We shouldn't have voted. Well, maybe you wouldn't have, then maybe we wouldn't be here, but if you weren't asked to, I also understand that. So, like I said, it's
And I do not, and I've been here a long time, I do not ever remember a time when it was legal to have a strictly lawn maintenance company without a nursery in Loxahatchee Groves.
Under the county code?
What's that?
Under the county code.
Yes, under the county code.
I-
When Mike Hanley went in down the road for me, and all his tractors and trailers went out every morning, he planted enough plants in his front yard to qualify as a nursery.
I can
He
say.
waters them, he takes care of them, but I don't think he takes the one out, puts it anywhere. And it qualified him to have his maintenance business in Loxahatchee Groves.
I can say with absolute 100% certainty that a standalone landscape maintenance business was permitted in the time we were citing in this zoning district.
By county code.
By county code, 100% certain. The city attorney and I looked at it.
I just don't have it tonight. I mean,
We
he's
need
asking
to
me
look at that. We need to look into that. If there was an error made, then I'm gonna look at this differently. But, you know, what I remember was, we were not interested on Okeechobee, where we are allowing some certain types of commercial to go. That we really didn't want a token nursery sitting in a corner of the property that was just there so that part of it got an ag exemption, and then the business was ran out of the other one that was 99% of the business. So that's why that night we said, let's just take out that little token nursery and just approve the whole thing, pay taxes on the whole thing according to a commercial venture, not an ag venture, and go according to that, was my remembrance. So we need to look into that and find out if we were wrong, and this was always a permitted use along there.
Absolutely. The code, I mean, your code staff is here, perhaps they can speak to it, but I supplied the code sections. We specifically took a recess at that first meeting, and the city attorney and I looked at the code sections. He confirmed it. That's the reason why we took the recess. And then you all came back and said, okay, then we're going to allow you to come back in 6 months and eliminate the nursery component. That was absolutely clear. I guarantee with 100% certainty.
All right. We need to
What
look
I
at
can
that.
do is, I can go back and I'll look, I just wasn't, I guess, I didn't have any direct conversations with Mr. Coviello. The letter was all that I had, same thing that you had. I will go back, I will get the application in the code, and I'll look at it, and I'll speak with Mr. Coviello and see what we can do to get on the same page, at least of what was done in the early parts of this matter. So,
Mayor, let me say, I would appreciate the town council revisiting this issue and taking, just as it relates to the cost recovery. Let me tell you, the town management company has had these discussions with the FAAC. They feel very strongly, we've had some issues where people have come up and we've not made them go through cost recovery. And the issue that Councilman Goldston is referring to, I know exactly what he's talking about. That's one of the reasons why we've identified we need to rewrite the ordinance, because what it states is if an application requires final approval by the council, all outstanding payments shall be paid in full prior to the town council placing the application on the town council agenda for consideration. You can never meet that because you're going to incur costs that night that it's being discussed. So we have to do it in a staged process where we get more money so that we don't ever fall into arrears. That's what we want to do. That's one of the 37 projects on the list. FAAC wants us to move ahead. I need your direction because if you want us to make it that ironclad, we can do it. And then we'll move forward. And we'll move it up the priority list and get it done. But that's what's been clouding the entire cost recovery issue.
All right, so let's look into that. Jim, I would recommend your motion be done with full council.
Yes.
I'm trying to follow up comment, though. You talked about this concept of how do you administer the cost recovery. And it's easy, in my mind, easy, not difficult, to get estimates from those parties that we need to do service, provide service to us. Jim Fleshman was here that night when we talked about it. He said, I can do that. I can tell you it's going to be up to 8 hours. Mike can tell us how many hours, best guess. And given that budget, given to them, they can simply say, hey, I'm not done, I need more money, or I need more hours, and then town staff can look at what they've got. This is not an actual bill paying problem. It's an estimate. What are we going to be charged to do this? That's administratable with the ordinance we have, with the structure. All I have to do is go that route. I don't see it's a problem. You know, I mean, if I have to volunteer my time for every single project that comes in here to track it, I'll do that. I will call each of the providers and I will say, this is your budget, are you close? Once you get to 80%, let me know, because we may not be able to finish this on the money we have. But this is bad.
Okay.
And Mayor, we think we know how to remedy the problem. That's not the issue. The issue is getting it done if that's what you said is done.
Right. Okay. John Ryan?
Thank you.
Thank you.
By the way, quick question on this subject. If Mike now spends $1,000 researching this and finds that there was no error made, then that gets charged to the applicant, as far as I'm concerned.
Amen. Okay, John.
John Ryan, 3508A Road. I do have a recollection that one of the background issues was that this business was operating under the county before we adopted our code. I'm not sure what happened at the magistrate hearing. There may have been confusion over the fact that they evidently didn't go through a special exception process that we had in place for legacy businesses. Now, our legacy business, I don't think complicated necessarily legal operation under the county code, but it would be a stronger case if they were fully legal under the county code. But that's one reason the ULDC committee has focused with Mark's full involvement and Jim Fleischman's full involvement on a simplified special exception process. And I think that may have been some of the confusion here. But I think that's part of the reason that this got to the point that it did, that it may not have been handled as a special exception because there was a legal business under the county code, but there was confusion over the fact that that was established a couple of years before the town ULDC went into place. And like I say, I'm not sure how it was handled in the magistrate hearing, but it may warrant some reconsideration if it does in fact pan out that the county did approve landscaping.
Thank you. Thank you, John. Frank Shallow?
Frank Shell, Marcellus Boulevard. You know, before we had our town and we were incorporated, the county gave what they call business tax receipts now, which are occupational licenses back then, to anybody that wanted it, without any research at all. That property there was originally zoned agricultural residential. It's got a house on it, it's got a barn on it. When the person moves in, it was still zoned agricultural residential. And herein lies the problem. You had the county that said, oh yeah, we're going to give you what you want. We're not going to even worry about it because we don't have code enforcement out here anyway. We all know that. That's a true statement. Code enforcement came out when things got to the point of where it was out of control. And it was very few and far between. And those of us that have been out there for a while, and Mayor Browning, I'm sure would be shaking his head. He knows that that was the case because we went through this with the Landowner Association when we had it years ago, and when we were all right. So that here lies the problem. That it was agricultural residential. They come in and they bring in all these trucks, 10, 15 trucks and trailers and all these workers and everything, have a big compost pile back there, and basically it's a commercial operation. And you can't get away from saying it's a mom and pop operation, or it's a family business, because there's no family business that's that big. That has just all family there working, nobody else. So I think that's where it all comes to, and if it goes back and we research this and all that, I think you'll find that it was agricultural residential, stayed like that for a while, and, you know, now with the council doing what they were doing, ended up changing it over to a commercial enterprise.
Thank you, Frank. Tom McClendon?
Tom McClendon, B Road. I'm kind of curious if the town attorney spends $1,000 and finds out that the town made a mistake, we're going to charge, if the town didn't make a mistake, we're going to charge him $1,000. If the town did make a mistake, are they going to refund him all the money that was wasted? Because that would be the right thing to do. You guys want to take the money from him, but you don't want to give it back when you make a mistake. And I find it very distasteful that there's a council member sitting up here tonight that has a family member that's opened up the exact same type of business as him under our new code, and somehow thinks that that's acceptable, but we want him to stick to the letter of law and pay every nickel, thousands of dollars, to do the exact same thing as this council member's relative, and not have to do anything. I think it's distasteful.
Ken Johnson?
I thought we had certain operational procedures that were not directed to council members. We don't seem to adhere to that.
Wasn't a specific council member.
And you don't have to be specific, we're talking about council members.
I'm not talking about his business. I know what he's doing there. Not talking about what Todd just said. But I sit on the committee that he's talking about. We're looking at, how many did you say, 37 different things? But if you look at the expenditures that the town is paying up front every 30 days, magistrate, Frank, if he goes out on a case, Jim, if he goes out on a case, we get billed for that. And all these bills add up. So as a member of that committee, and I looked around to see if the chairman was here tonight, but he's not. We are incurring as a town all these costs. And that money is coming out of your pockets, my pockets, everybody else's pocket that's sitting here, except his pocket. But I'm not talking about it. You know, no offense, but what I'm saying is that we are paying all this money because somebody stands up and says, oh, not me, don't charge that to me. But we've got to recoup that money to keep our taxes where they should be. I'm not saying overcharge him. Might overcharge him a little bit and then pay it back to him, but at the same time, when the smoke clears, we're dead even. I'm not saying anybody that has a problem that we, make a fee off of it, but when the smoke clears, we should be dead even. But we've got 37 projects, and all of them are accruing cost that we're paying out of our pockets. And that's what the committee is concerned with, is about just recouping our monies fast enough to offset those costs. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. All right.
Your Honor, if I could just make one statement for the record, I think this might help council understand. This has been like the perfect storm for a code enforcement case. Because since this has occurred back in 2008, you have two governments that have been involved. You've had two special magistrates that have been involved. You've had two code enforcement members. You've had three management companies. And maybe Mike's associate might have dealt with it before him. I can't say that one for sure. So maybe two attorneys, I don't know. But you can see why it has been such a confusing mess in terms of trying to address this and get this resolved.
Sure. Okay. All right, so you're going to come back?
What I'm going to do is it won't be 10 hours.
Thank you.
I have the file, I have the materials, I can have a call with David to make sure we're on the same page, at least what we're looking at, and then get back to you. I don't know if it'll be before the next meeting, but within the next couple meetings, I'll be able to give you my analysis of whether it was error or whatever the case may be, to help assist you in making a decision.
Right. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, one last comment. If Mr. McClendon was talking about this particular council member, is completely incorrect, or do not have the same situation with a family member. He's twisted information as he always does, and that needs to be said. If it's not me, then I don't know of anybody else in the council that has that problem either.
Okay. All right, moving to 11B, solid waste collection agreement.
Thank you, Your Honor. I provided a revised report. As you know, we brought this to you, got your approval on July 2nd to move forward. And basically, the town staff has worked with the town attorney. The town attorney's office has done an outstanding job in terms of working with town management, the town's public works vendor, solid waste monitor. As it relates to this, I think this contract represents a lot of good things that strengthen the contract will help us go forward in the next contract with Waste Pro Florida. And again, as I said, I think they've done a great job. We'll be happy to go over anything you want. But again, I apologize for the length of this, but town attorneys have always advised us it's the contract plus the bid, plus the bid of the
It's all
response.
exhibits to the contract.
And of course, the contract prevails in all these matters, so there's no issue or conflict. So it should be okay.
Okay. Any questions, comments?
I have a comment. Mark, take me through. I talked to Mike, I believe Mike, Jordan and the staff. We had, at the meeting when we approved the selection, and the representative was here, as I recall, you were very specific about can we keep the same schedule we have now, because the proposal was presented to us kind of a moving target, and that was fine. And the concern was, of course, that it was a cost change because of what they submitted, and we resolved at that time. No change for cost, and you can keep your same days and your same services, I believe. I asked that question because I couldn't find specifically that was the case, because when we looked through all the information, it's really based on it. So I believe tonight I was told that it seems to say that the solid waste and recycle are scheduled for Wednesday, Saturday, but I think we need to be a little more specific in that to keep the same schedule, it's solid waste Wednesday, Saturday, it's recycled Saturday, and it's vegetative waste Wednesday. And I think we can put that into the contract. I don't think that then we would have a problem, since you said right here and said, no, cost, you can do it the same days you have. So if we can put that in a little more clearly, because in the one section pointed out to me, it said recycle Wednesday, Saturday. And it should say just Saturday.
Right, it says collection shall under normal circumstances take place on Wednesday and Saturday of each week. I think if you believe we need another clarifying, either in one of the other sections, I suppose you could adopt it tonight, Mike.
Yeah, and the section for vegetative, I don't think I had that clearly answered, but simply is Wednesday is vegetative and solid waste. Saturday is solid waste and recycle. That's what our schedule is now. Let's just make sure that's clear in the contract. That's all.
That was certainly the intent, status quo, as you would
Right,
request.
right, that was the intent. So,
I don't see that when I read through that clearly.
What we can do is, if the vendor objects, he can get up. If he doesn't object, then is he here?
Yeah.
Maybe just confirm that we can add those two sentences.
Just help, yeah.
Under recycling and under vegetative, and if that's the case, you can approve it subject to those changes.
Okay, go ahead.
For Chili Waste Pro. Yeah, the service days are gonna stay the same.
Okay, so that was one. So we can add a sentence to the hours of collection and recycling, we'll add a statement under vegetative waste.
Yeah, so we won't be looking for recycling on Wednesday, and we won't be looking for vegetation on
Recycling
Saturday.
Saturday and vegetative.
Vegetation will be on Wednesday still, and the recycling will be on Saturday.
Okay, super.
Thank you.
I believe that's what you told us before, and we appreciated that time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Any other comments or questions?
I have one other comment on the subject. I was pleasantly pleased with the solid waste collection of vegetative waste about a week ago. I don't know why I haven't put out some vegetation after the truck came by, and mysteriously, it was picked up before the end of the day, so I appreciate however that was done.
Probably thanks, Frank.
Don't thank me for it.
Okay,
I said, what service?
all right, any other, then I'll entertain a motion, and then we'll read the comment. Jim, gonna make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept the contract with the, I believe as legal counsel suggested, a couple sentences added, which accomplish specifically that our service days of week are therefore unchanged going forward, which means Wednesday, vegetator, Saturday, recycle, and Wednesday and Saturday is solid waste.
Okay. Second by Tom. Motion by Jim, second by Tom. Public comments, I've got one. No, that's already done. Okay, I don't have any public comments on this issue. I've got it under public comments, so yours will.
Yeah, no.
Is yours?
11B.
Okay, this is, all right, come on up. I can't read. Oh, okay.
Thank you very much. This data that I'm talking about has been addressed by myself and Mark. Frank was sitting in on it. At that time, I did not have the photographs because they were on my cell phone, and I had to figure out how to use this thing to get them off. So, but subsequently, I ran them by there, and I don't know if you got them or not, but I gave them to Frank. And a lot of the discussions that we've had tonight, I think, can all be tied together and could truly help everybody here about land values, whether it's their residence they're living in, or whether they've got vacant property that they can sell. But, and a realtor's right here, and I doubt seriously if she would like to see her clients see the garbage that's on our roads. I don't know how you hide it from them. And I'm not talking about all over this area that I've looked at. I'm just talking about places within a stone's throw where I live. And somehow we need to tie the horse trails together. We need to clean up our community. We need to get a groundswell to get our values going up. Somebody had a thing out of the Palm Beach Post that had land values in Waxahachie Grove was minus 3.6%. But every other township, except for one, was down south, and they got a minus 0.6%. Had gains in land values. Ours wasn't. So somehow or other, we've got to re-educate our public, myself, everybody, to help clean up, get our places looking better, stop the garbage on the roads, and I just want you to look at these. And these, as I say, are within a stone's throw of my house. In conjunction with that, I think there's another way that we can get free money, and that's through the recycling. Because right now, I think we take in about $8,000 annually, and that reduces our taxes. But if we could get that to a $25,000, $30,000 chunk off of our taxes, it starts becoming meaningless. But how many people really recycle? I don't really think we've got enough, but if we started, and they give us the recycle bins free, they'll even give you a little trolley to put them on and take them down to your side of your road if you want that too. But somehow we need to get that effort topside on the agenda, and I know your plate is full, but somehow we need to get everybody working on recycling to help reduce our garbage bill or our taxes or whatever it may be. But that's just how I see it. You may have different ideas. But when you look at those photographs, I don't think you'd be happy with that being next door to you either. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. All right, we have a motion, a second.
I have a comment card.
On this one? All right, come on up, John.
Mr. Mayor, if I may ask a question relative to these pictures. We're specifically talking about the waste solid waste collection agreement, and I'm asking, in your expectation, if solid waste did something different? Is that what you're trying to also point out?
No. What's
I mean, I'm trying to draw some, if there's something that solid waste, and I'm sure they would be looking at it, if there's something they could do.
I think Frank has come up with a good contract that he will have more control on complaints. Is this not correct? Whereas before, he didn't have any control over what was going on in our community. Now, if a complaint comes in, he's got a little more latitude to try to make things right for our community.
Okay, Ken, I just want to make sure if it was something we
Yeah,
should-
right now, we're dealing with Waste Pros contracting, so we want to,
Yeah.
it's really two separate issues.
That's correct. But I think the contract for Waste Pro is fine. I have a problem with the commercial people that are commercial, and whether they've got dumpsters.
Separate issue, but I agree with you, Ken.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Two quick things, wording questions that I think are worth looking at. On page 10 of 50 in the contract, item 4A1, it implies that all vegetative waste will be containerized. Other portions of the contract spell out that there's an exception for tree branches and palm fronds. But this section here, which is talking about conditions and frequency of service, has wording that just says that all vegetative waste will be containerized. I just don't think that's the case.
What's the number on that, John?
10 of 50.
Page 10 of 50.
Yeah, what item on 10?
4A1.
Okay.
And then on page 32 of 50, there's a basis for complaint that I think would be maybe unreasonably burdensome. On page, like I said, 32 of 50, item 21, requires Waste Pro to have supervisory personnel present on all of town's routes. I don't know that they actually have a supervisor present when all the routes are being serviced, but I think the idea is that they want to be able, Frank or the town would want to be able to contact the supervisory person to investigate a complaint. But I think that wording might be, unduly burdensome. The other thing was just, I think there are other portions of the contract that spell out that tree branches and palm fronds and Christmas trees don't have to be containerized, but grass and other small pieces of yard waste do have to be in bags. So just that one, since it was the basic criteria for conditions and frequency of service, I thought maybe we wanted to have that refer to another section.
Thank you, John. All right.
Mayor, on that last one, I do want to just say that, yes, we did ask the town attorneys to place that item 21 about the failure to have supervisory personnel present on all the town's routes. Waste Pro has approved. Frank can get up here if you want, he can further amplify, but the issue has been in the past, he's run into several situations when certain properties were being missed or whatever, and they didn't have a supervisor present, and they couldn't get to it, and it caused problems down the line. So I think that was an attempt to tighten up, and I think it's a good provision. I don't see it being unfair or being.
I have noticed it happening, and I think that's why sometimes when you double put it out, then all of a sudden it disappears even the second time, because I see their truck running the route many times after the truck goes by. So, I think they're doing a good job of that.
To address the wordsmithing, it does say, shall be properly containerized in garbage cans or otherwise prepared for collection. And unless you, Jack, maybe we could add a phrase that's pursuant to the terms of disagreement. You just leave it the way it is, because it says or
I think
otherwise.
we're all right for collection. They understand everything's been going fine, so I think that's good. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Contract passes 3-0. All right, moving to public comments. I've got Lisa Glenn, and I've got Keith Harris.
Hi, Your Honor. I'm not sure I'm doing this right, but I have called the town office and put this out there, and they said it had to be done at the meetings. So for 2 meetings ago, we missed it, and then I don't know what happened at the last meeting. So I own MSA Nursery, which is on Folsom Road, 1311 Folsom Road. I recently bought the 10-acre lot, which is on the north side of the nursery. There's a short dead-end road, 13 Place North, that is between these two properties. And what I was asking if it was possible, and I was told that it would be, but it has to go through the town, of acquiring that road, because it's not a thoroughfare. My nursery and my personal property are the only ones that use this road. And what I'm trying to do is put a perimeter fence around my personal property and put a gate there at 13th Place. And we'd already had it permitted, surveyed, now we're just trying to get the okay to acquire that road.
So it's got to go back to other people's houses or anything like that?
No, it dead ends at the same part of both properties, my nursery and my personal.
And it's totally contained in your property?
Yes.
All right, what's the,
And it's an access road granted with the property. That was part of the deed, says this roadway will be, this is the access road to this property.
That's how you get into the property,
But
yes.
it's part of the deed, it's not separate property.
Well, let me suggest something, because I talked with Braden this afternoon, and I told him that what we, this is, I think I brought up last meeting, there's a process of abandonment, it's on your public road list. I can sit down with Mark and Braden tomorrow, and go over, but we'll have to have some documentation to verify what was said. I'm not saying that it does, it's not, she's being untruthful, just in order for us to process, then we bring it to you, and you, by resolution, would, once it's verified, abandon that, and it would be, or it would no longer be a public road. There's a process for that. We just need to get to the documentation, and I just need to sit down with Mark.
Documentation from me?
Yes.
Okay, because I had given that all to Braden already.
Well, then I'll have it to look at, see what else we need, but we have a meeting on other road matters tomorrow, and I'm going to sit down with Braden and Mark tomorrow to go over this one.
I do want to say, Your Honor, I want to thank Ms. Lynn, because she has been very patient. We've been very, I think they probably have at least half a dozen phone calls or more, and we did want to get Mike involved with this because it is on our gas tax map, so obviously, whatever we're going to do, we wanted to do it properly. But I do want to thank her. She's been very, very patient with us.
those we need to evaluate ourselves, because if any of these roads that we're collecting gas tax on are really driveways and don't serve multiple properties, we need to get ahead of the game and take this off. And we do not need to.
You should be able to hear back from us, from Mark after tomorrow. Okay?
Thank you.
Lisa, thank you. Keith Harris?
Yes, I'm Keith Harris, 2580 C Road. I have a little problem, perhaps the town's attorney can answer. I spend too much time on the end of the manure folder. I've heard the term resolution used about the shopping center. I heard the term resolution for Pinecrest, and I just heard a resolution for 13-4. Would the town's attorney care to give me a 30-second education on a town resolution and how it is legally binding? That might be vague.
Well, matters of law are done by ordinance.
Yeah.
You know, matters of procedure are done by resolution, and once they're adopted, they're binding legislative action by the town council.
So resolution is legally binding.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, Phyllis?
Okay, I'm gonna comment on Phyllis Panania, 359 West E Road. And this is about the security and situation that you're concerned about for the members of our Loxahatchee Road management and where the offices are. I'd like to take, being that you brought that up, that I had mentioned last meeting, that I would like to see our offices in that corner unit where the bait and tackle used to be. There is full window view of anybody that would be coming in there, and you could put a buzzer on that door so no one comes in. Right now where they're at, anybody can walk in there and they would not know it until they're right on top of them. And we would give our town management more access. I think it would be more friendly to the people, the residents of Loxahatchee, and I made some suggestions last time about that. But I would really, really like you to consider this seriously. I think it might be a really good thing for everybody.
Well, we really weren't, it was two separate things. We were talking about these meetings and rather than the other, because that's what happened in Pennsylvania.
Right, I understand that, but it was brought up a couple of times today about the gentleman that, made the phone call.
Yeah.
And that, they wouldn't know. If he walked in that door, they wouldn't know until he was in their office. So I would really like you to take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Frank Shiloh, and then Marge.
Frank Shell and Marcel Boulevard. Just a quick note, the baton team that you and the Landowner Association and Waste Pro and some other members of the community sponsored, they're back. The team as a whole won 3 gold medals. My daughter Andrea won a gold medal and 2 baton, I don't know if it's called dual baton or whatever, I'm not really up on the jargon, but I do know that she was ranked 10th in the nation. So, the baton company, the baton group is going to come here to thank you all and make arrangements to go, not to this meeting for the Landowner Association, but the next one, because right now school started and a lot of them are just running crazy right now, just trying to get everything together. 3 of the baton members went to college on partial scholarships, I believe, for baton twirling. And if everything goes right, their next, in 2014, they'll be going back to the Nationals again. If they do well there, they may have a chance to represent the United States and the world in Italy. And people really didn't know where Loxahatchee Groves was before they got there. Now they know where Loxahatchee Groves is at because this team of 10 or 12 young ladies and their coach Debbie went ahead and is really letting the people know out there on a national level where Loxahatchee Groves is at and what kind of team this is. So I just wanted to let you know that they're going to come, not all the girls, but some of them will come at your next meeting or at the beginning just to thank you, and they're going to bring their medals in and all that, and they're going to do the same thing at the Landowner Association.
Thank you, Frank. If we can just get the post in Channel 5 and Channel 12, like such groups.
Yeah.
Okay, Marge.
Marge Herzog, A Road. I just wanted to remind everyone here that this Thursday, August 21st, we're having our Loxahatchee landowners meeting, And we are going to have a representative from the Palm Beach County TV and Film Commission talking about the involvement of filming in Palm Beach County. We're also going to have at that same meeting a representative from FAU University talking about landscaping best management practices and concentrating on fertilizers. And going along with Ken's concern about cleaning things up, I want to give you an advanced heads up for next month. On September 21st, we're going to have the National Honor Society help the landowners do an Okeechobee from Folsom to Seminole Pratt cleanup. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. All right, moving to town attorney. Michael?
You know it's that time of year. My favorite time of year starts in 2 weeks. I say go Gators.
All right, starting with Jim.
I like the schedule. You're doing a great job, Mark, keeping us thank everybody for coming out tonight. That was it.
I'd like to thank Ken and Phyllis for their concerns about the area. They are right. There's a lot of the problem, I think, relates to community pride, which some people don't have. A lot of that's due to the fact that some of these people aren't from around here. They're just working here or whatever. We do have problems in the plaza. We are moving forward, though. The tent city was removed today, which I'm glad to hear, and I compliment Beverly's gone, but I compliment Russ and everything he's dealt with Mr. Eaton getting that done. So, you know, little steps forward, but there's still a bazillion beer cans, so maybe a few people need a little money can go and pick them up and we'll be doing better, but, you know, little by little. And otherwise, thanks everybody for coming.
And I too thank everybody for coming. I find myself sometimes in a dilemma. You know, we as a town council never wanted to come down and say, well, you've got to mow your grass and you've got to keep it like Wellington. At the same time, we all pass properties where the grass is 3 feet high. We see properties where people have dumped stuff in front of their property which should not be picked up by Waste Pro. And, you know, whether it's an old trailer they're parking out or whatever it is, and you've got a pile of scrap out there with insulation in it and all that, and then they refuse to do anything with it. So I think we're probably going to have to revisit some of that stuff and maybe come down harder on some of these properties that are owned by banks or foreclosed on, that they decide not to do any maintenance at all on it. You know, I mean, we have one right there, Okeechobee and D Road, that at one time was a very well-maintained nursery, and now it is just gone to garbage. And, you know, so something that we have to deal with. And I think that as we do that more, there more community pride comes into it, because I think that's part of it. If it looks like a trash can, then everybody will treat it like a trash can. So, you know, it just breaks my heart when I see the canals with every bottle and can and, you know, things thrown into it, and you know, it's a shame. But anyway, thank you all for coming, and have a great week.
Yeah. I think with our, there was recent laws passed relative to foreclosed property and maintenance requirements of that, and we've adopted some changes. I think there are some things that may be relative to that, but they would need the complaints be enforced, as I understand. So I think if you have a couple of people like me, you can ask the town to look at under that criteria. I think there's something we can do in that force.
Okay.
Motion we have.
Second.
I also read the first, go ahead and start a new contract. Going around. For example,
We used to jump on the construction down the street.
That's like, your job needs to be done, I know what the contract says, but it's not. That's the level of service.
Hey, did your friends ever come? I never got a call. What's that? I hear you, I hear you.
Thank you so much. I have a little card. Thank you. I want to send you public records tomorrow. So I'll let you know.
You just gotta set it up and bring him out. I'll start you
Sorry,
with
it's
a small caliber.
I didn't expect it to be quick.
Computer, I'll pay that back.
We can put will it fit in there? We can fit it. I found a new way to hold this. I pull it by this. I didn't even know there was that. It's so very cute, isn't it? Isn't it so very cute? It's very cute. So, oh my god. All these plugs and crap. Oh, here we go. It's such a little camera, such a big case.
Can you turn that damn light on? I don't really know.
You guys are wrapping it.
It's terrible.
Can we make it any more obvious?
Yeah, no.
Huh?
Yeah, no.
I don't know what I'm doing with this thing. Let's just assume it's on.
Yeah. Start flashing the light. Last call.
He knows everything. We look at that
Light on, so I'm thinking that's on.
no, it's still on.
I'd like
He has